Give me 14 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Not because I have some formula to sell you, but because there's something happening in your life right now that you've been trying to explain away, and you can't. You keep telling yourself it's a season. You keep telling yourself people are just busy. You keep telling yourself that the distance you feel from certain people is temporary, that it'll pass, that if you just try a little harder, love a little more, forgive a little quicker, everything will go back to how it was. But it won't. And deep down, you already know it won't. Because God is doing something you didn't ask Him to do. He's removing people. Quietly, without explanation, without your permission. And it hurts, doesn't it? It hurts in a place you don't have words for. Because some of the people He's moving out of your life are people you love, people you prayed for, people you thought would walk with you all the way to the end. I want to talk to you about that today. Not as somebody who read it in a book, as somebody who lived it, as somebody who sat at his own kitchen table one night with a cup of coffee going cold in front of him, staring at a phone that used to ring 3 times a day and now didn't ring at all, and had to ask God the hardest question a person can ask. Did I do something wrong, or did you do this on purpose? Stay with me, because the answer changed everything. Let me tell you how it usually starts. It doesn't come with a bang. It comes with a whisper. You notice a conversation feels different. You share something that's stirring in your spirit, a dream, a calling, a shift you can feel, God working in you. And the person across from you gives you a look. Not a cruel look, just a blank one. An empty one. The kind of look that tells you they don't see what you see. And you leave that conversation feeling smaller than when you walked in. And you think, maybe I said it wrong. Maybe I need to explain it better. So you try again. And again. And each time you shrink yourself down a little more to fit inside a room that used to feel like home. You start editing what you say before you say it. You start hiding the very parts of you that God is trying to grow. You become quieter, smaller, more careful around the exact people who are supposed to be safest. Think about that for a second. The people you feel least able to be yourself around. When did that happen? When did the room where you were supposed to be free become the room where you hold your breath? That's not an accident. That's a sign. Here's what most people miss. When God is preparing to elevate you, when He's about to take you into a new season of your walk with Him, He doesn't just add things to your life. He subtracts. And the subtraction always comes first. Always, before the promotion, there's the pruning. Before the harvest, there's the clearing of the field. And it feels like loss, because in the moment, that's exactly what it is. It's loss. But loss and destruction are not the same thing. A gardener who cuts back a vine isn't destroying it. He's making room for the fruit that hasn't grown yet. You are the vine. And God is holding the shears. Let me take you somewhere in Scripture, because this isn't new. This is one of the oldest patterns in the book. Think about Abraham. God comes to him, and the very first instruction, the very first words of the whole covenant aren't, "I'm going to bless you." The first words are, "Get out. Get out of your country. Get away from your kindred. Leave your father's house." Before God shows him a single promise, God asks him to leave, to separate, to walk away from the familiar faces and the familiar streets, and the family table he'd sat at his whole life. And I want you to sit with how hard that was. This wasn't Abraham cutting off people who hated him. These were his people, his blood, the ones who raised him. And God said, "I can't take you where I'm taking you as long as you're anchored to where you've always been." Some of you needed to hear that. The people God is removing aren't villains. That's what makes it so hard. If they were cruel, if they were obvious enemies, you'd have walked away years ago. But they're not. They're good people. They're people you love. And that's exactly why you've been holding on so long past the moment God told you to let go. But here's where it gets real. Abraham obeyed mostly. He left his country. He left most of his kindred. But he brought Lot with him, his nephew, family, because it felt too hard to leave everyone behind. So he compromised. He took one person with him that God had actually told him to leave. And what happened? Strife. Their herdsmen fought. Their possessions grew too great for the land to hold them both. Everywhere Abraham went, Lot's presence created friction he couldn't explain. Until finally, Abraham had to look at the nephew he loved and say the words he'd been avoiding for years. We have to separate. You go your way, I'll go mine. Do you understand what that means for you? Sometimes the delay in your breakthrough is a person you were supposed to release chapters ago. Not because they're evil, but because your assignment and their assignment stopped pointing in the same direction, and you kept trying to force two roads to be one. And the exact moment Abraham finally separated from Lot, look at what God said. The Bible says that after Lot left, then the Lord spoke to Abraham. Then, not before. After the separation. God said, "Now lift up your eyes. Look north, south, east, west. All this land I'm giving it to you." The full vision only came after the final goodbye. Some of you are waiting on a vision that's being held behind a goodbye you refuse to say. Let me get more honest with you, because I don't think we talk about this part enough. There's a specific kind of grief that comes with this. It's not the grief of someone dying. It's the grief of someone still alive, who just isn't yours anymore. You still see their name pop up. You still remember the inside jokes. You still catch yourself reaching for the phone to tell them something before you remember, oh, that's over now. We don't do that anymore. That grief is real. And I don't want you to bury it or pretend you're fine. Jesus wept at the tomb of a friend, even when he knew resurrection was 30 seconds away. So don't let anybody tell you that being spiritually mature means you don't feel the cut. You feel it. You're allowed to feel it. Feeling it is part of honoring what it was. But feeling the cut and reversing the cut are two different things. And here's the trap so many people fall into. God removes someone, and it hurts so bad that we go running back. We text first. We apologize for things we didn't do. We beg our way back into a room God spent months walking us out of. And we call it love. But sometimes it's not love. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of the silence. Fear of who we might have to become if we can't hide behind who we used to be. I know that fear. I've lived that fear. Let me tell you about a stretch of my own life. There was a season where God pulled me out of a circle I'd been part of for years. Good men, most of them. Churchmen, some of them. But every time I got around them, I left feeling heavier, not lighter. I left doubting the very things God had spoken to me in private. I'd hear from heaven all week, and then one evening around that table, and by the time I drove home, I couldn't remember why I'd ever believed God could use somebody like me. And I fought God on it. I did. I told him, these are my people. I told him, you gave me these relationships. I told him, if I walk away from this, I'll be alone. And you know what he didn't do? He didn't argue with me. He just got quiet. And in that quiet, I finally heard the thing I'd been too loud to hear. You are not alone. You are just afraid of what I want to say to you when no one else is in the room. That wrecked me. Because it was true. And let me tell you what it cost me to obey. It cost me a lot of lonely evenings at first. There were nights I'd reach for my phone out of pure habit, and I'd stare at those names. and my thumb would hover, and I'd have to physically set the phone face down on the table and just breathe. There were Sunday afternoons that used to be loud and full that suddenly went quiet. And in that quiet, I'll be honest with you, I second-guessed God more than once. I'd think, maybe I heard you wrong. Maybe I'm just being prideful. Maybe I threw away good things over a feeling. But something else started happening in that quiet too. I started hearing God's voice clearer than I'd heard it in years. The static was gone. The competing voices that used to drown him out, they weren't in the room anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I could actually tell the difference between what God was saying to me and what I'd just absorbed from the loudest person at the table. That clarity was worth every lonely evening. Every single one. Some of you keep those people around, not because they add anything, but because their noise keeps you from having to sit alone with God and hear what He's actually trying to tell you about your future. Let me show you another one, because I want you to see this is a pattern God has used with His chosen for thousands of years. Look at Joseph. Here's a young man with a dream, a literal dream from God, about his future, about elevation, about his family one day bowing before him. And what does he do? He shares it. At the dinner table, with his brothers, the people closest to him, the people who should have celebrated with him. And they didn't celebrate. They hated him for it. His own brothers looked at the calling on his life, and it made them sick with envy. So they threw him in a pit. They sold him. They ripped him out of his father's house and shipped him off to a foreign land where he didn't know a soul. Now here's what I need you to see. That betrayal, that violent, unfair, undeserved separation from everyone he loved, was the exact vehicle God used to get him to the palace. If his brothers had loved him well, Joseph stays home, stays a shepherd, dies unknown, in the same field he was born in. But because they cut him off, God got him where He always intended him to go. Read that again with your own life in it. The separation you're grieving might be the very road to the room God prepared for you before you were born. What felt like being thrown away was actually being sent ahead. And I love that when Joseph finally stands face to face with the brothers who destroyed his life, he doesn't say, "You ruined me." He says, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." He saw the hand of God underneath the betrayal of men. He understood that some doors have to be slammed shut by other people, because we would never have had the strength to close them ourselves. Maybe you needed that door slammed. Maybe if they hadn't walked away, you never would have. And God knew that. So He let it happen, not to punish you, but to free you. Let me show you one more, because this one carries something the others don't. Think about Ruth. Now here's a woman standing at a literal crossroads in the middle of the road, and there are two women in front of her, Orpah and Naomi. Both of them family. Both of them loved. Both of them have walked the same hard road of loss with her. Their husbands are gone. The future looks like nothing but empty fields and empty years. And Naomi, the mother-in-law, says to both of these young women, "Go back. Go home to your mothers. Go back to what's familiar. Go back to the gods and the streets and the people you came from." And here's where the road splits. Orpah does the reasonable thing, the understandable thing. She kisses Naomi goodbye, and she turns back toward everything she's ever known. Nobody would blame her. She wasn't a villain. She was just a woman choosing the familiar over the unknown. But Ruth does something that makes no earthly sense. She looks at the harder road, the road with no guarantees, the road that leads to a land where she'll be a stranger, with a different accent and a different past. And she says, "I'm not going back. Where you go, I go." Your God is my God now. Don't ask me to leave you. And I want you to catch what actually happened in that moment. Ruth had to separate from Orpah, from a sister, from someone who'd shared her grief, in order to walk into the destiny God had for her. Because if Ruth turns back with Orpah, she never reaches Bethlehem. She never meets Boaz. She never becomes the great-grandmother of King David. She never lands in the bloodline of Jesus Christ himself. All of it hinged on one woman's willingness to walk a different direction than the person standing right beside her. Some of you are standing at that same crossroads, and there's an Orpah in your life, not a bad person, just a person going a different way. And God is not asking you to hate them. He's asking you to release them and to keep walking toward the field where your future is already waiting to meet you. Now listen, I don't want you walking away from this thinking every hard relationship is God telling you to quit. That's not what I'm saying. Sometimes the friction is God telling you to grow, to forgive, to be more patient. Discernment matters here, so let me give you a way to tell the difference, because they feel similar from the inside. When a relationship is meant to be refined, being in it makes you more like the person God's calling you to be. It sharpens you. Even when it's hard, you leave a little more humble, a little more like Christ. That's iron sharpening iron. Keep those people. Fight for those people. But when a relationship is meant to be released, being in it slowly erases the person God's calling you to be. You leave more anxious, more compromised, more disconnected from your own faith. You find yourself dimming the light of God in you just to keep the peace. That's not sharpening. That's smothering. And no amount of loyalty is worth trading the fire of God for the comfort of a familiar face. Sharpening or smothering? That's the question. Sit with it about the people in your life right now. And let me say something gently, because this next one is delicate. Sometimes the person God is removing isn't out there. Sometimes it's you. Sometimes you're the one who's supposed to walk away. Not with drama, not with a speech, not with a big announcement about how you've been wronged. Just quietly, humbly, you loosen your grip, and you let God carry them somewhere you're no longer meant to follow. The most mature separations don't come with fireworks. They come with peace. There are messages that pass through your eyes, and there are messages that pass through your spirit. If something in you recognized itself while watching, don't dismiss it. That is the Spirit confirming what was already written. The secret protocol carries 7 keys that unveil what heaven deposited in you before you ever arrived, things no one around you has ever been able to name. It comes with the full audiobook for your moments of prayer, silence, and encounter with God. And you also receive the Awakening Map, the guide that illuminates the 5 seasons of spiritual awakening, revealing with precision exactly where you are and what comes next. The link is pinned in the first comment, but only for a limited time. Don't let this moment pass without a response. And I say that here, at this exact point, because I think a lot of you are standing right at the edge of a decision. You feel the pull. You feel God asking you to release something. And you've been asking Him for a map, some way to understand where you are and why this season feels the way it does. That's why I put it there. Not as a sales pitch, as provision for a person standing exactly where I once stood. Now let me get back to you, because I don't want to leave you in the grief. I want to show you what's on the other side. Here's what happens when you finally obey. When you finally stop chasing the people God released. When you finally let the silence be silent, instead of filling it with one more desperate text. Something you didn't expect starts to happen. The very room that felt so empty starts to fill. Not right away, but slowly. God starts sending people who see what you see. People who don't make you shrink. People who hear your dream and lean in instead of looking away. Because here's a truth I had to learn the hard way. God cannot send you your future people while you're still gripping your past people. There's no room. Your hands are full. Your calendar is full. Your heart is full of relationships that expired seasons ago. And God, in His mercy, will not clutter your life with your destiny while you're still crowding it with your history. Think about a farmer. He can't plant the new crop in a field still full of last year's dead stalks. The clearing isn't cruelty. The clearing is preparation. Every empty space in your life right now that used to hold a person, God is looking at that space as ground He's about to plant something in. That loneliness you feel, it's not abandonment. It's a field being cleared. I think about Elijah for a moment here. After the greatest victory of his life, he ends up alone in a cave, convinced he's the only one left, convinced everyone who mattered had abandoned him or turned against him. And in that lonely cave, God does two things. First, He feeds him. He tends to the grief. He doesn't rush him past the pain. But then He gives him a new assignment, and listen to this. He tells him about 7,000 others he didn't even know existed. People God had reserved. People God had kept. Some of you think the separation means you'll be alone forever. But God has people reserved for you that you haven't met yet. 7,000 you don't know about. He didn't remove your old crowd to leave you empty. He removed them to make room for the ones He kept for this exact chapter of your life. Let me talk to the ones who feel guilty. Because I know some of you carry guilt about this. You feel like walking away or being walked away from means you failed, means you weren't loving enough, means a good Christian would have found a way to hold it all together. I want to set you free from that. Even Jesus didn't keep everyone. He started with a wider crowd and it narrowed. Many walked away from Him when the message got real, and the Bible says He let them go. He didn't run after them. He didn't water down the truth to keep the numbers up. He turned to the few who remained and simply asked, "Will you also leave?" He understood that some people are only meant to walk with you for part of the road. And letting them go at the right mile marker isn't failure. It's wisdom. If Jesus released people without guilt, you're allowed to as well. And here's the part I really want to land in your spirit before we close. This whole process, the removing, the clearing, the grief, the silence, it's not God being distant from you. It's God being closer to you than He's been in years. Think about it. Who prunes a vine? Not a stranger. The one who owns it. The one who's invested in its fruit. The one who's near enough to touch each branch. The very fact that He's cutting things away is proof of how close He is and how much He intends to do through you. You are not being abandoned. You are being tended. There's a world of difference between those two words, and I need you to feel it. Abandoned means nobody's watching. Tended means somebody who loves you has his hands in your life right now, deciding with care what stays and what goes. The people leaving your life are not evidence that God forgot you. They're evidence that God is finally answering the prayer you prayed a long time ago, the one where you said, "God, take me deeper, take me higher, make me who you created me to be." He heard that, and this is what the answer looks like. It doesn't look like addition. It looks like a field being cleared for a harvest you can't see yet. So here's what I want you to do, and I mean really do, not just think about. I want you to stop mourning the ones who left as though they took your future with them. They didn't. Your future is in the hands of the God who's clearing the ground. And I want you to stop running back to the rooms He walked you out of. Let the door stay shut. Trust the one who closed it. Give the empty space to God. Let Him fill it. He will fill it. Just not with the past. Now I want to hear from you, and I want you to be specific with me, because this matters. In the comments below, I want you to tell me about the exact moment you first felt God asking you to let someone go. Not the person's name, you don't owe anybody that, but the moment. Where were you? What were you doing when that quiet knowing came over you, and you realized this season was ending? Was it in your car? At your kitchen table? In the middle of a conversation that suddenly felt hollow? Tell me that moment. And tell me one honest sentence about how it felt. I read these, and there's someone scrolling through who needs to know they're not the only one who's had to walk that road. And remember, everything I spoke about goes deeper inside the secret protocol, pinned in the first comment. The 7 keys, the audiobook, and the awakening map are there waiting for you whenever you're ready to take the next step.